Hello everybody. Well, I said I was going to tell you about the 144,000. So you may be wondering, what do I have to say? So first, I need to explain something to you so that you understand the reason why there are 144,000 Israelites going to be redeemed from earth. Now the reason for that is because in our planetary procession, we face an ordeal, and that Earth is revolving basically inside a magnetic field. And this magnetic field, which is generated by the sun, it's an electromagnetic field. They call it the ether. Many people have described it. Tesla described it. It's basically really energy structured around what he described as radiant energy. Now, radiant energy is energy that is generated by the sun, and it's the energy, the life force of Earth, which everybody is connected to, and everybody draws from it consistently. Now, the Earth is rotating around the sun, and there's a misconception about the process of this. Humanity understands or believes that Earth goes around the sun in that direction, but it actually goes in that direction. They believe it goes around the sun once a year in that direction, but it goes around the sun in that direction in 25,920 years. In modern years, that is. Now, I've told you about the incident that befell Noah, and it's important to understand that something happened during that incident which is creating the illusion that we're going around that way around the sun very fast. Now, when that comet, from what I explained to you about Noah, when that comet hit Earth, it pushed Earth out of its orbit by 2.5 million kilometers. And this resulted in Earth tumbling around the original orbit, which is here. So Earth was tumbling around the original orbit. Now, the problem that this has created is that it gives the illusion that we are in an orbit, an elliptical orbit, and they've attached this orbit to our orbit around the sun, but it is incorrect. The orbit around the sun takes us 25,920 years in modern years, and I say modern years because the second thing that happened with Noah, when Earth got pushed around or out of its orbit, it also, from the impact, it rotated Earth faster. The rotational speed of Earth used to be 290 revolutions per year. So we are now doing 365.25, which you probably know. So what needs to happen is that we need to compensate for those two additional occurrences that happen to Earth, and this is not being taken into account by modern scientists. Now, the problem that we face is that this spiral orbit around our main orbit of 25,000 years is causing a lot of changes which are happening as climate change as you perceive it. We are actually also in this long orbit facing another ordeal, and that's what this is all about. We are going to cross the equatorial of the sun very shortly, and in the Bible there's a bunch of passages that will lead you to believe that something is going to happen on Earth that we don't quite perceive. So what are these these incidences that we are waiting and that the Bible is saying that we should be waiting for. I mean, it gives a lot of warnings and it tells us that there are things going to happen. For instance, in Revelation 16:21, it says, "And there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent. And men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, for the plague thereof was exceeding great." So what's going to happen is that when we get to this equatorial plane that we will cross twice in our orbit around the sun, every 11,600 years apart, we will cross from one side of the sun's magnetic field to the other. And if you know magnetism, you'll know that there is an equator. Every magnet has an equator, and if the sun is an electromagnet, as per se, then it has to have an equator. So Earth is orbiting within that equator's parameters. We don't go very far from it. In fact, all planets orbit in that field. Now, what needs to happen is that when we get to the point where we're going to cross, then Earth will simply go through this field, but it will flip its polarity around. Because the sun is not going to flip its polarity, we have to flip ours, because we're dictated by the sun's magnetic field. So there is an article on the blog that I have quoted. I'll leave the link below, but there is an article you can go and read, which was submitted to the intellects of the world, and they don't seem to make much sense of it. In fact, they disagree. But it's really actually very logical if you go and take a decent look at it. So, what do we expect? What are we waiting for? And what does the Bible say about this occurrence? So let's have a further look. In 2 Peter 3:12, it says, "Looking for and hastening unto the coming of the day of God, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat." And then it says in another passage also in Luke, it says, "And there shall be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken." And then it also says in Mark 13:24, "But in those days, after the tribulation, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars of heaven shall fall, and the powers that are in heaven shall be shaken. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. And then shall he send his angels, and shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from the utmost part of the earth to the utmost part of heaven." That was Mark 13:24. So, in Revelation, it says that there's 144,000 that will be redeemed. So what is the necessity of this? When we cross this equatorial plane, the fact that we are flipping the polarity from south to north, also remember that we're an electromagnet. The ether is dictating our magnetic field, because we're always 180 degree opposed to that. And this is once again that duality of God. It displays that perfectly, where everything is equal opposite, and everything needs to be equal opposite to attract. If for instance, a couple get together, they need to be equal opposites for them to have an evolving relationship, so to speak. So what is going to happen when we cross this equatorial plane? The problem we face is that when we are crossing the equatorial plane and Earth flips its polarity, it turns to a very, very powerful magnet for a very short period of time. And when that happens, the space debris that is outside of Earth's atmosphere, because we're going to turn into a huge, huge magnet for a brief moment in time, all space debris will be drawn to Earth. And it will come down in the form of big rocks. And they will be burning hot, fiery hot. When they hit the sand, it's going to start burning. I recently went to a lake at the back here, and the lake is pretty dried up in places where the bottom is totally exposed. It's kind of a weird thing because we have seepage water that comes up from the sand. We don't have soil, we have sand. And the seepage water comes up from the sand, but one part of the lake is at its height and the other part is totally dry, which probably means that we've pumped it dry or whatever. But the thing that I noticed was metallic rock with rust, obviously yellow in color and with a very dark inner rocks about this size lying everywhere in the lake. And we don't have rocks here. There's no rocks here. So those are the kind of rocks that we are looking at coming into Earth's atmosphere. Now, I will try and go and take a photograph of it when I go and ride my bike next time, but basically what we're looking at is rocks this size coming into Earth's orbit or coming into Earth's atmosphere by the millions of them. They will be raining down like hail. And this is what is going to be a huge problem. What will happen then is, I think you can imagine that nothing is going to be safe. There's not going to be one place on Earth where there won't be hot rocks falling. It's going to set everything alight. Everything's going to be burning. It's not going to be a pleasant sight. But anyway, that's how it's going to be, because that is part of our process. I think the only place that you will be safe would be underground, and the elite have already built their bunkers and going deep underground because of this. They know this and they don't want to share the information with you. So the only thing to do then would be to remove a certain amount of breeding stock, so to speak, of Isrealite from Earth. And this breeding stock is in the form of 144,000 couples. Now the couples would be equal opposite couples who were from the very beginning. They were Heros Gamos couple. Heros Gamos is just an amalgamation of two heavenly beings. Now the Israelites, as you know, I've said to you before, the blue-eyed people who are here from heaven, and they didn't evolve from Earth. And I know these things are very difficult to hear, and it might scare you what I'm busy saying. But what the purpose of these 144,000, removing these 144,000 on Earth, is to prevent them from dying, so that when Earth recovers after the crossing of the equator, then Earth will be able to recover the Israelites. And this is when the new kingdom really will be on Earth, because they are the basis of the new kingdom. They are the pyramid at the controlling head of humanity. They're at the top of the pyramid. Everybody else falls in below them. So this is when the new kingdom will be on Earth. And it says in Revelation, "And I heard a number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all of the tribes of the children of Israel." So knowing that, you must know that all of these will be blue-eyed people, and all of these will be of the tribe of Israel. So we don't know who they are. Only the heavens know. Only God knows who they are. But they have already been chosen. And they are the only ones who will be redeemed from earth. Don't believe that you will be redeemed if you're a strong enough Christian, because I think there's something like 3 million Christians on earth right now, and quite honestly, to redeem 3 million is a lot more of a significant exercise than taking 144,000 breeding stock off earth. Those who evolved on earth, the brown-eyed creatures or the brown-eyed homos, they are the ones who will be the surviving, the ones who survive that will be the breeding stock of earth creatures in the future. So you might ask yourself now, or might think about it, that but there's so many people on earth, so many bodies, but there is a little thing that happened here, and this is also in defiance of Exodus 20 verse 12, which basically says that we have to honor our parents, and as a result of that, many of you on earth are defiled homos, and really every time there is a blue-eyed and a brown-eyed copulating and creating offspring, it's really actually adultery because of these couples that are actually meant to be. And the Israelites were never meant to have brown-eyed partners. So that is really a problem and an issue why humanity is as big as what it is, or is as significant as what it is. And it's created many problems. In fact, the aspect of poverty and all of these things is a result of this. So it says in Exodus 20 verse 12, it says, "Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land, which the Lord thy God giveth thee." So really what that is referring to is what I just told you. So the fact that it says that your days on earth will be lengthened is referring to the fact that every time there is a defiled homo born, he starts really a new stem of humanity. He begins from scratch and has to redevelop his spirituality from scratch. So he's not really attached to anything. He's not capable of incarnation, or if there is evolved a spirit in his family, then that person will really cut himself short of an incarnating avatar. And that's really a big problem that God faces. And to give you a bit more proof of this, because of the Israelites defiling these problems and doing the things that they did, and it says all over the Bible, they went to the daughters of Moab and of the Amorites, and it was really a big problem, and God was really getting angry about them defiling their blood to this extent that he said to them, just because you are doing this, in Jeremiah 31:27, he says, "Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will sow the house of Israel and the house of Judah with the seed of man and with the seed of beast." And then he also goes further, saying in Deuteronomy 23:2, "A bastard shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord, even to his 10th generation shall he not enter into the congregation of the Lord." And this is something that humanity simply needs to understand. Look, I know it's nobody's fault. Your parents are your parents. They should be blamed for not adhering to God's laws. But you know what? 8 million humans on earth, or 8 million bodies, avatars on earth, and fire coming from the heavens and taking mostly everything out, is going to be a huge problem. So from that point of view, I think the only way to save yourself, or the way to have peace with that, is to have peace in your heart and to know the truth. And the truth is that humanity will largely disappear. And until such time, all you can do is get yourself on the right side of God. And I cannot imagine that you can do that through Christianity, because Christianity has been lying to you. That is the bottom line. So thank you for taking the time to listen to this. Until next time, goodbye.